Hello, I'm Sally Noel Cohen, and I am the Senior Vice President of Global Communications at ICANN. And I have the distinct honor and pleasure of speaking today with Doreen Bogdan-Martin, who's the Secretary General of the International Telecommunications Union. Welcome, Doreen.
Thank
Such
you.
a pleasure to have you here. Well, let's begin.
Great.
So this is your first term as Secretary General. What are your most pressing goals for the ITU and the ITUD in this year?
So I took up my function on the 1st of January. So I'm 10 months in at this point. I would say my greatest priorities are to connect, the hardest to connect. Yeah. So today we have 2.6 billion people that have never, ever been connected to the internet, that are digitally excluded, that are being left behind. And so the top priority for the ITU as a whole is to connect those unconnected. And that's our work in development, but it's also our work in the standards side as well as the radio communication side.
It's a tall order.
It is a tall order.
It really is. It's a lot of people, but there's such a need for them to be online and to be connected.
Yeah.
You also your election was historic. And in ITU's history, you were the first woman to have been elected Secretary General, which is amazing, and in a landslide. So what does that mean for you and for other women who are involved in ICT? How do you use this platform?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's a great honor to be the first woman. I like to think that my election was based on a strong track record of accomplishments, and it brings a lot of responsibility, in particular as being the first woman.
Yes.
As you know, our sector is largely underrepresented by women.
Yes.
I think we have to do much more to engage women and girls in our sector. This has been something I've been committed to throughout my whole career, which has been in the telecommunications, in the digital space. And we haven't seen much progress over the past 30 years, I would say. So there's a lot to do. I think we have to close the digital gender gap. We have to make sure that women and girls have the access to digital technologies,
Yes.
Which is not currently the case for many reasons. In some cases, it's due to the exorbitant cost of services, the cost of devices. We have to make sure that once we are able to get women and girls the needed access, that we also provide the digital skills necessary to make that experience empowering. And I think the third piece is to get more women and girls in our sector, and that it has to start at a younger age. That's why things like our Girls in ICT Day event that we celebrate every April on the fourth Thursday, trying to expose young girls to what a career in the ICT sector could look like, and try to build the pipeline to engage them in academic studies that are linked to our field. And of course, ultimately to get them into our workforce. Once we get them into our workforce, to make sure that they don't depart, which is often the case. We have this leaky pipeline syndrome that women often leave this sector because they don't feel that our space is an enabling space. And I think there's a lot to change, and that's a lot to change on the government side, on the intergovernmental organization side, civil society, and of course even in the technical community, to make our space more welcoming and more empowering.
I hadn't thought about the concept of leaving, once you entered and started in the field. And that's really interesting to me, because I think part of it is mentoring as well.
Absolutely.
Right? Because there still aren't that many women.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting too, because it ties all together with your mission, right? Connecting the unconnected, right? And giving them those opportunities early.
Yeah, I mean, mentoring is a key piece. And, I think men and women alike can be mentoring other women. We have a Women in Cyber program, for example, that's been quite successful. Having women in cybersecurity mentor younger women that are potentially interested in the field. And we've been running that for a few years. Now some of our mentees are actually mentoring, which is terrific. We also have women in AI, also the women in DNS.
Yes.
And I think those efforts are critical because without that mentorship, women will likely leave sooner than we want them to, depart for other opportunities.
The threshold is difficult.
Yeah.
And I think that makes sense. And you're right. So ICANN does have a DNS Women's
Yes.
forum that they have, and they just had an event last evening, in fact, for that very same reason. I'm going to pivot just a bit and talk a little bit about what's happening in the General Assembly. So in 2025, the UN General Assembly will be conducting the review of the outcomes of the World Summit on the Information Society, where they will assess the progress of the multi-stakeholder model of internet governance. And that was recognized in 2005. So there's been 20 years. What are your thoughts about this? And what are your thoughts on the multi-stakeholder approach as an effective model?
So I guess the first thing I would say is the multi-stakeholder approach is fundamental. I think that's a critical piece. And we need government, we need private sector, we need the UN agencies, we need the academic institutions, we need the technical community,
Yes.
civil society. We need all those voices at the table. And so I think that piece is fundamental.
Yeah.
At the ITU, we have been leading the WSIS Forum efforts, which is also an outcome of
Yes.
the WSIS 2003 and 2005, the IGF being the other
Yes.
key piece as well, where the ITU is also very much engaged. And in 2025, as you said, this whole process is up for review. I think what's important is that we preserve the multi-stakeholder component, and that we also recognize what's changed since the WSIS in 2005, since the last review in 2015.
Yes.
We need to be able to adapt and tweak the framework. And I would also say that we should be looking at the targets that we did not achieve in 2015 and try to really zoom in on the challenges, the barriers as to why we're not getting to those targets as quickly as we should be. As I said before,
that makes sense.
if we have 2.6 billion not connected, we need to double down and move faster so that when we get to 2030, everybody's connected.
Yes. And that's the goal, 2030 to
Absolutely.
have. Yeah. It's a lot of work, but it can be done.
It can be done.
So pivoting to that, if we could talk for a bit about the collaboration that ICANN and the ITU has had specifically toward this school. And ICANN is a member of the ITU in the development sector, and we've pledged our support also for an important program, and that's the Partner to Connect. ITU is also a partner in the Coalition for Digital Africa, which is ICANN's initiative and with some of the same goals. In what other ways can our two organizations work together to further the goal and get closer to connectivity in 2030?
I think we're very happy on the ITU side with the excellent collaboration and cooperation that we have had with ICANN, as you mentioned. ICANN is a sector member, as we call it, of the development arm of the ITU, and that's a really important partnership that we have and that we would like to strengthen. The work that we have done with the Digital Africa Coalition, I think is terrific. We have 10 countries that are part of the first cohort. I hope we can add more. And the Partner to Connect initiative, as you mentioned, is all about getting to the hardest to connect, getting to those vulnerable groups, and that requires all hands on deck. We have a big focus on the access piece. We also have a big focus on the adoption piece, the skill building, and then a big focus on the value creation, where we're targeting the kinds of applications, the content that will actually make the experience more empowering. I think ICANN and the ITU, we share a shared vision when it comes to the digital world.
Yes.
We believe in a trusted, secure, unified internet that can benefit all people everywhere. And I think we have to stick together in the times ahead as we look to the WSIS Plus 20. We have the Global Digital Compact next year as well, the Summit of the Futures, and of course, ultimately, the Agenda 2030, where we need to achieve each of those 17 SDGs.
Yes. The Sustainable Development Goals.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. There's much to do, but so much opportunity,
Indeed.
I think. I think that's a perfect place for us to end. So I want to thank you so much for spending the time, and we look forward to working together, continuing our work together in the future.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Now, thank you for the opportunity, and also look forward to further cooperation and partnerships. Thank you.